Good afternoon, everybody. This is Attorney Danyl Patterson, candidate for the 190th State Representative seat. For those of you who don't know, we keep telling you it's West Philly, baby. So if you live out there in the 19139, the 19131, 19104, 19151, 19131, and of course over there in North Philly in 19129, this is where it's at. We're here today with my good online friend that I actually had the pleasure of meeting in real life. With us today is Dineen Pashoukos Wasylik. No, Wasylik. She's been correcting me for 99 times. I'm going to bring her in. Good afternoon, Dineen.
Hi, Danielle. How are you holding up?
I'm pretty good. For those of you who didn't read my post, Dineen is coming to us all the way from quarantine, where they're newly quarantined down there in Florida, because you know they
Finally.
folks under Mr. Governor DeSantis. Y'all are different kind of folks. As a matter of fact, he apparently didn't know that you could catch the virus from folks who were asymptomatic, and y'all were still out there partying on beaches just a week ago.
Not me, but yeah, unfortunately, some of my fellow Floridians were not taking it seriously. Hopefully, they are now.
That's right, because we got to keep those beaches open because hey, spring break, baby. And now here it is in Philly, and it's finally actually spring break. And I heard that they opened up another beach. Is that what happened?
I have not heard that. Gosh, I hope not. We're supposed to be on lockdown now for the beaches, but people are not necessarily listening to that either.
Yeah, no. So on the news, they made sure to let us know that two beaches were actually open back up in Florida. I don't know where they are, but I just said, okay. I was like, y'all couldn't even make it a week.
I hope not.
The same cloth the rest of us are. Because we've been struggling now for 3 here in Philly.
Yeah, we're trying to keep it closed down now. Hopefully, people will start paying attention.
Well, thank you for coming and joining us today. Dineen, can you please tell us a little bit about your practice?
Sure. I am based in the Tampa, Florida area, but I serve clients nationwide with copyrights and trademarks and helping them protect everything they work so hard to create. And that with that comes a lot of small business counseling, which all my small business clients certainly have had their hair blown back by everything that's been going on right now. And, we've been working really hard to make sure we're on top of all of the possible relief options open out there for small businesses, and hopefully I can help some of your constituents learn about that today as well.
Well, first, I think one of the biggest misconceptions is what is a small business? People think that they're not eligible for any of these programs. We kind of see them and we're focused on our $1,200 stimulus check. And the more people I told were actually available, to apply for this, they were a little bit fascinated. So please start there.
Sure. Well, the definition of a small business under the Act right now is any business with under 500 employees, and that does sound pretty big still. But it also can include the statute at this time also includes sole practitioners, people who are self-employed, people who are working as contractors and are receiving 1099s as contractors. They may also are likely eligible to apply for one of these programs, the Payroll Protection Program, or PPP, that we're hearing so much about. For that program, applications for sole practitioners and independent contractors is supposed to be opening on April 10th. The rollout has been a little interesting, to say the least. But what I'm hoping, at least today, is to be able to give your constituents some information on what they should be gathering up to be ready to apply and seek out this, and how to sort of get their bases covered as everybody sorts out how to work with these programs.
Well, okay, so I'm going to try to break it down so that we can have two distinct conversations, because people are coming to me with very specific questions.
Sure.
So we're really going to start on the small businesses, what we consider to be a traditional business. And
Sure.
Then we're going to take the second half here and go to the independent contractors, because there's a lot of confusion as to what to apply for, when to apply, and whether or not you can still apply. Because, what we're seeing is, oh, they ran out of money. This one's not accepting loans anymore. And then there's the other thing. I'll be very frank with you, Dineen. When we're talking about my constituency, we're not talking about a lot of businesses who have very established relationships with credit or with lending institutions.
Right.
A lot of times they're the unbanked, for no other way to say it. And as a result, there are folks who have started small businesses. Maybe they started them in the home, moved to a vendor truck, those are huge in Philly. And then maybe they got themselves a small storefront, but they've been generally operating a cash business, meaning
Right.
that the monies that are floating the business are the monies they've earned. It's not been
Yeah.
I've got 90-day receivables and I'm paying on the back.
Right.
And as
Right.
a result, many think there's just no hope for them to get any of these monies.
Yeah, well, we definitely should talk through sort of some of the ways that they hopefully can make the showing required to get some of these monies, because it's not necessarily, well, let me start with the fact that right now there's two different kinds of federal programs. There may be also local Philly programs that I'm not aware of, but there's two federal programs for small businesses at the moment. There's the EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, which you hear people refer to as EIDL a lot. And then there's also the Paycheck Protection Program. And for some businesses, one may make more sense. For some, the other made more sense. For some, it makes sense to do both. So let's break them down a little bit.
Well, I'm also going to tell
Go ahead.
you that there are actually two that are specific to the Philly area. So I've got to remind everybody to do the Philly COVID-19 Small Business Relief Fund, which is a grant, $5,000. They still have money. I confirmed that before we came on today. They're still open accepting applications, but only for the $5,000 micro business grants, which most folks can actually apply for with very limited paperwork.
Yeah, that's great.
The other is the Verizon LISC, LISC, Small Business Recovery Grant Act. That's a $10,000 loan through Verizon, and it is specifically for minority and women-owned businesses in our area. So, and they also are still accepting grants. So I just need to make sure that I keep telling everybody about them, because apparently they're the ones that nobody's reaching out to.
Yeah, there are some other private programs that are coming into play, and as I'm learning of them, I'm sending them out to my email list to let people know about them. There's another one that I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but I can send around, that is for women-owned businesses. So that is being funded by the founder of Spanx. So there's a bunch
of Spanx. I think I wear Spanx. I have to wear Spanx to court because it's still a requirement that we cover up these legs. And my grandmama said you always got to control the booty in court. That was the rule.
There you go.
No booty jiggling in court. So I wear the Spanx. So, but Dineen, how can folks get in contact with you since they may want to follow up? What's your website?
Yeah, sure. So it's IP-appeals, APPEALS.com. And if you type that /COVID, COVID, and I'll actually send that into the live comments too, then they'll get on my email list, and I will share with them the, as I learn of other grant type programs, or as we get more information on how these federal programs are playing out, how the regulations are developing, I will definitely share that information with anybody who signs up there to get it on newsletter as well.
Well, I am sure that you'll make sure that you keep us up to date. Everybody, make sure that you log into www.ip-appeals.com/COVID. And also, I will make sure that I list this resource on Danyl Patterson for 190.com. So we'll make sure that you can get this information. Now, please tell us about we'll start, I guess, with the one that most folks are most familiar with, which is the EIDL. Since we're all at home being EIDL, that's how I remember.
There you go. So the EIDL is an economic injury disaster loan that is given out by the Small Business Administration, the federal government Small Business Administration. It's a direct loan from the SBA. You apply for it directly on the SBA website, and it is kind of a more traditional loan that Congress last week added a few twists to that weren't there before. So the part about being a more traditional loan is that you can apply for up to $2 million if you have security interest that you can give, or even up to $25,000 if you don't have a security interest to give. Security interest is like a mortgage to property, or even a security interest like a mortgage on your desk. Even if you have personal property, they would want to securitize that. But whatever the amount is, it is what we call an underwritten loan, which means they are going to look at your financial viability and see if they think that you can pay it back. However, there is what was added last week by the CARES Act in Congress, is to try and move things forward, the up to $10,000 grant, like to sort of hold you over while your EIDL loan application is pending. And I'm saying, making sure I'm saying up to $10,000, because for a while there, it made everybody think that if you apply for this, you will definitely get $10,000. Some guidance we're starting to hear from the SBA today is that it's up to $10,000, and it might be $1,000 per employee, might be less. So
that's disheartening, but it's still
yeah,
better.
It is. But it's still better than zero. And that $10,000 or that up to $10,000 that you get as an advance, whether or not you qualify for the EIDL loan itself, whether or not you have good enough credit or whatever to get the EIDL loan itself, if you get that advance, you don't have to pay it back. That is a forgiven advance. So that's really important. Go ahead.
Because one of the reasons that people have been so low to even apply, it's been twofold as I've been talking to folks. First, they think there's no way in the world this is real money that we can get. And so I was trying to explain that some of the underwriting was actually laxed a little bit because the governments are actually securing the loans for you. So that's one. And then number two is that it's kind of like if something is too good to be true, it probably is. And so people just don't understand why the part of the stimulus package would even be for people like them, meaning for real small business owners, especially when you throw out that number that a small business is 500 or less. They seem to think they forget that, you know, other businesses kind of exist. And first, I got to say, Charlotte, thank you very much. I am still working hard, trying to look good for you folks, even though I'm in the middle of the COVID crisis. But I'm going to tell you, I learned something else. They told me over the weekend you have to wash the wig. So now I'm traumatized. I can't just wear it. Wig. So I might do a video on how to wash the wig because I'm sure this is going to be absolutely hilarious. But you know, anyway, like I said, Miss Miami, this is Miss Miami. And she's been doing a real good job for me for a couple weeks. But anyway,
it looks fabulous.
Back to you there, Dineen. So why is it that the government is trying to do this, you know, basically securing the grants for us, so the loans?
Right. Well, I mean, the idea that Congress tried to put into play by enacting this so quickly is a recognition that this crisis is causing a slowdown, and to give people the encouragement actually to stay home and, you know, close down their businesses as need be for this period of time, so we can flatten this curve out and get through this crisis. And so the government is guaranteeing these monies. Is guaranteeing the $10,000. It is directly from the government when it's the EIDL loan. And I was on a call with small business, with SBA folks down in South Florida just earlier last week. It feels like forever ago at this point. And they said that, apply. It's the same information that you've already given the government as far as your tax returns go. So you're not really giving them any more than you were before. You do have to make a certification that your business has been affected by this, but pretty much everybody's business has been affected by this. So I mean, the worst that can happen is the money doesn't go through, but it's supposed to, and it should, especially that, that first up to $10,000. It's a good idea to get yourself in line for that. And at the same time, I mean, just as like a business, from business person to business person, at the same time, do make sure you're doing everything you can to think of alternate streams of income, to serve your clients, even if you can't be in your storefront. I mean, there are things that can be done, but certainly also try and take advantage of what you can as far as grant programs and loan programs, if that's what's necessary to keep you afloat.
The other thing is that when we talk about it and say, oh, well, we think that, that we've already given the information, on our taxes, and then we say, okay, well, we don't know what else is going to be. What I want to say to folks, and so that they understand, this statement of impact from the COVID-19 is not your Yale essay, okay? I want you to know this is not the Yale admission. It's got to be something new and different. They know what's going on.
Yeah.
Significant enough is I'm an attorney. I have a law firm. Cases are not resolving because we're not going to court. As a result, my income has been impacted. That's really the statement. Now I could, fluff it all up and do a whole bunch of other things to it, but you know what your business is. If I own a hair salon and the government has said that you're not an essential business, that means that my business has been impacted because I am not open.
Right,
so
exactly.
You understand that it's that simple.
Yeah, you don't have to go into that much detail. So someone, I see Kimberly made a comment, can you speak to the guidelines that make it forgivable? I've seen that only certain expenses are covered or forgivable. Yeah, so the EID, the up to $10,000 on the EIDL, that's forgivable. It can be for payroll, it can be for mortgage, it can be from certain other business expenses. It just can't be the same thing that you spent the payroll protection money on. So you can't double dip and be forgiven twice when you claim 1 week's payroll at both times and be forgiven twice. But that's kind of the first $10,000. That's how you can be forgiven. And that also goes into the payroll protection program, which we maybe should get into now.
That's first I was going to say to explain that because I had to actually do this research and ask around, so I understood. Sure. Also, if you apply for the PPP and the EIDL, your EIDL will be reduced by what you get in the PPP. So therefore, you can't double dip.
There you go. That's true.
That this is an opportunity for you to try. No. So you can apply for both. But if let's say you get the PPP and that comes first, and then they tell you that you can have a $25,000 EIDL and you got a $5,000 PPP. Now you got a $20,000 EIDL, basically.
Correct.
So it is reduced. So please continue, please. And I hope that if you need some more information here, please continue to text in the comments so we know exactly whether or not we've answered that question for you.
Yeah, sure. Well, so on the Paycheck Protection Program, that's a little bit different. That is intended specifically to cover payroll for a period of time for these small businesses. And so the way you determine the amount that you're allowed to borrow is not based on your credit worthiness. It's not based on, on all of your business expenses. It's really just based on your payroll. And there's a really specific calculation for how you determine what your payroll is under the PPP. So it's 2.5 times your average monthly payroll, but you have to, look at it carefully. That excludes, it includes money you spent for vacation or sick pay. It includes money you spent for a severance if you have paid that. It includes money you spent for health insurance on your employees, but it does exclude the money you spent on your federal portion of payroll taxes. You take that out when you do the math. It does exclude any amount over $100,000 per employee that you paid your employees. So if you're lucky enough to have paid your employee $150,000, you only get to use $100,000 of that to figure out the math of what 2.5 times is. And it excludes amounts that you've paid to employees who reside outside of the United States. So it has to be people who are here in the US when you're looking at your payroll. And for the real small businesses, that may not be an issue. For some of the ones that are getting up on the 500, that may or may not be an issue. But generally speaking, the calculation is you take the payroll calculated the way we've defined it in the statute, and you multiply that by 2.5. And that gets you the amount of a loan that you can get. And you apply for this one through a bank, which is another issue we'll put a pin in and get back to you. That's another, right. But you apply for the PPP through a bank, maybe your bank, maybe not your bank. We'll figure that out. And then from there, they're supposed to approve the amount. They're just supposed to verify that you've done the math right and approve the amount and not even look at anything to do with creditworthiness. And then once you get that money, you have 8 weeks to spend it on allowable expenses that could be forgiven. And as long as in that 8 weeks you spend it on forgivable expenses, which is the majority of that should be payroll, 75% of that should be payroll, up to 25% can be rent on your business, mortgage interest on your business, utilities on your business. But most of it should be payroll because it is a payroll protection program. The idea is to keep people employed. So if you can prove that you've spent the money on the right stuff, then you can have that loan forgiven. If you do not prove that you spent your money on that stuff, then whatever is not forgiven gets converted to a loan, but the terms of that loan are pretty good. Yes. It's a 2-year loan, 6 months forbearance before you have to start paying back, and it's limited to a max of a 1% interest rate, which is, you can't get that anywhere. You know,
that's free money.
Maybe from grandma, but nobody else will lend to you for 1%, right?
Kimberly, I hope that helps you, but please continue to comment if it does not. Now, William Nelson had a very interesting one. So he started his business a while ago, but his first day of operation was 2/1/20. Can he still apply? This is interesting.
That's a great question, and there is a date cutoff that you have to have this operation in March. Yeah, and so I think that's right, and I don't have it right in front of me, but I'll confirm it and put it in the comments afterwards if we don't finish it. And if you and so yes, as long as you've been in operation since that time, you can apply for the PPP. Again, it's going to look at what your payroll is, right? And so if you have payroll, then you have to look at the time period. There's in the statute, it says like if you weren't in operation for the last year, you can use like basically like a first quarter of 2020 time period to look at. Work with your bank and make sure you've looked at that carefully because the regulations are still forming on that, but it's looking at a first quarter thing. Now, we will talk in a second about the why, how this, I keep saying payroll, like you're on a payroll system there, but these loans are also available to 1099 contractors or people who are sole proprietors who don't have folks on their payroll. And Emily, who's a friend of mine, is asking that exact thing.
Here has this question, and it was the question that I had as well. I'm an LLC, and I take a draw. My employees have a payroll, but the vast majority of the salaries are actually, payment are mine. I draw down, what are the net after business expenses and those kind of things. So I think this is what Emily is talking about. Let's say I have a home-based business, or the business is me. If I'm an architect, sometimes I go ahead and again give and I sell my services. How is it that this would apply to me?
Right. So even if you're the sole owner of the business, if you have any payroll expenses, if you are paying anybody on a payroll, then the payroll protection loan is only for the payroll to get the people who are on your payroll paid. However, if you do not have payroll, if you're truly solo and it's just you and you're taking draws, the statute has some really specific, and I pulled up the wording because I knew people were going to ask this question, and I wanted to be able to answer it as accurately as possible.
Actually read the thing, okay? They read
the thing. Exactly.
She's exactly. She's here to help you.
Yeah, and so they're saying that if you are a solo, and by the way, that those applications don't open to April 10th, but if you are that kind of sole practitioner, then instead you're basically going to use your tax returns to show what you paid payroll, and work with your bank with that. They're going to ask you to show your tax returns for what you earned after your expenses, and that's the that annual salary from last year is probably what from the last year preceding is what they're going to use to get an average monthly salary, and then multiply that by 2.5 to get you a PPP. So the people who are in a tough spot are the ones who own the business but don't pay themselves a salary and pay other people a salary, and that might be where it makes sense to have more of that combination of the PPP and the EIDL, and understanding that your EIDL will be reduced by the PPP amount. That part is still sort of coming to fruition. But at this point, any money that you can have to protect your employees can be really helpful. So that is that's where we're telling people right now as far as looking at these applications.
As we've talked so much about the PPP, well, actually we're talking about the EIDL and still didn't get to the PPP. How does it work as a 10? Okay. So basically, Evelyn here, how does it work as a 1099 employee being paid off of a payroll?
Right.
So this is to Bill's question. He said that all of his employees are actually subcontractors that get a 1099.
Right. Yeah. So if you're paying people as contractors and you're 1099ing them, then they're not technically employees under the statute. And there was some confusion about this in the beginning, but the regulations that were issued say very clearly that you cannot include in your calculation of
Mm-hmm.
what your average monthly salary is, the amount that you pay to contractors. But those contractors should be able to apply for their own PPP to make up, produce those 1099s and say, here's 2 months of what I was making and get paid that way. That is the way this has been sort of built out. So if you're receiving a 1099, then you're a contractor and you need to apply for your own PPP. And so I would just say, those applications are not open yet. They're supposed to open on the 10th, but gather your 1099s. There's some confusion about whether it's last year or the last 12 months. I would just gather both and be ready to give the bank either set of documents, and just be ready to have it that way. So,
well, that's fabulous there, Dineen. Now, so some of the other things that have been questions when we're talking about you doing the PPE versus whether or not we'll be eligible for EIDL has also been with those individuals who are not just independent contractors or who are, like they're kind of walking that line between. There has been a great deal of confusion about whether or not the PPP is even still being offered. So
right.
there, always we turn on Facebook, and I don't know about y'all, but I watch Facebook like it's TV. So we turn on Facebook, and what do we know is that, oh my God, Chase is no longer, they ran out of money. Bank of America shut down their systems. What's the other one? Wells Fargo said, too bad you blew it. And then you've got folks like me who, Bank of PNC, who have been told that somebody's going to get back to them, but nobody's gotten back to me. So, is the program still valid and viable?
Yeah, I mean, at this point in time, there's certainly a lot of uncertainty, and I know it's causing a lot of stress for everyone who's been applying for these loans. The banks are I think they're just trying to triage. I mean, believe me when I tell you, I'm no fan of banks generally, but they're trying to triage this and get this information out. And you got to remember that this was passed a week ago, and they're taking applications a week later, so they're just having trouble sorting out how to do all of that. We think that that Congress is going to reopen and fund more, because if they don't, they will feel the wrath of all of their constituents. But it's not
their promises to American.
Yeah. So that just kind of depends. So we hope that is the case. I mean, I would say that's why I say, don't count on this 100%, but don't discount the potential to apply for it because you're hearing that it may be sold out. More small banks are kind of are being paid, are coming in and writing these kinds of loans, first of all. Second of all, I think once the bigger banks get through a first wave, they may reopen again. Once they're seeing that they're getting paid back. Remember, this program is supposed to be open through June. And so I think there will be a second wave of funding if necessary, and a second wave of getting through there. I mean, I know that doesn't help you today, and so many people are really desperate for, I need to deal with this today because I'm not working today. So that's why I say definitely do what you can to apply for these things today, but also do what you can to find other ways to fill the gaps. And maybe in your state that might be unemployment. It really depends on the state for that. Maybe it's, finding a side hustle. It's really just kind of depends, or finding a way to rejigger your business to offer things that you didn't do before in order to keep some cash flow in. I know it's hard. I'm not saying at all that what I'm suggesting is easy, but just do your best to do what you can while you're waiting for these programs, and hopefully they will start coming through soon. I mean, I've heard some folks who are working with smaller lenders that they've gotten their applications approved by the SBA. One thing that's important to know is that you can only be entered into the small SBA system once. The SBA, so you won't get rejected as long as you're only in the system once. So if you've applied somewhere and they've not gotten you in, perhaps another one will get you in instead. The biggest thing is just to make sure that your application is good and complete and you have your backup materials from the start. And that will help you get approved faster by the SBA, because even though the individual banks are giving these loans, the SBA has to approve it.
The other thing that we actually even talked about here was that we believe loans are going to start getting rejected just because they're incomplete, because people,
Right.
just they announced them and people ran and did them. People didn't understand them, and some of the banks didn't understand them. So it was like, here's the loan. So even though it looks like it may be closed, it may open up at the end of the week just because people start getting rejected for incomplete applications.
Correct.
So make sure that you are in the queue. I think that's the best advice to take away right now.
Absolutely. And some of the banks have sent out some guidance saying, the backup materials that they want include a copy of your driver's license. They want something showing that the business is, whatever your corporate form is, that you've actually done that, so they don't have to look that up. And also your payroll tax returns, the 990s that you file quarterly when you pay payroll taxes. That's a really strong indication for what you actually paid, and gives them an easy way to verify what you've paid for payroll. Even if a payroll company is sending you your 1099s and your 1099 checks, that's not the same thing as payroll. Payroll is being treated as an employee. I saw that as a question on there. So if you're being treated as an employee where they've been withholding federal payroll taxes on your behalf, that would be how I would define someone who's being treated as an employee on the documentation. Then those are the people that you can count in your count for doing these payroll protection loans. The one thing that I do want to make sure I say that I haven't said yet, that's so important, whether you get money from an EIDL or a PPP, please put this money in a separate bank account and hold it separately, because especially for these forgiveness programs, you want to be able to be sure to account for all this money in a proper fashion. And so to show that you spent it on payroll, to show that you spent it on qualified utilities and rent and the amounts that you spent on those things. Keep these funds separate and, get some guidance on how to disperse them in a way that you will be reimbursed at the end of those 8 weeks when you put your application together. That's the most important thing. That's the biggest train wreck that I see coming, is if you get this money in and you can't prove that you spent it on the right stuff, then it turns into a loan for you. So, make sure that you keep the money separate so you have good accounting in place, especially when it's really not 100% clear, the EIDL versus the PPP. Keep it separate. Make sure this money went to this and this money went to that, and you'll be in much better position to get any forgiveness that's available.
The other thing for all of you is, please check your bank's website. They'll tell you whether or not they are an SBA lender for the loan. So, so that way, as we're talking about some of the smaller banks, like example, my credit union's not doing it. I knew that. However, I talked to a friend, we looked, her credit union was doing it. So that was even better, and she's been pushed right on up the line because it's small, it's a credit union, and they had a quicker turnaround time. So, and the other thing that you also need to recognize is, not only do your banks recognize we're in the middle of a crisis, your lenders do too. And I just want these small business folks to know this. As we're, as I'm talking to, my friends in the law, they've been able to negotiate rent in some of the bigger buildings downtown, that folks know we don't have any money. So it's not an unknown thing, but it also does not presuppose that we don't have any. Because, hey, you might be in bankruptcy and getting ready to ball out in the law right now. So that means you might be getting ready to ball out. I mean, it might become the new area of law that I'm starting to specialize in. We never know. But the point here is, you still have to talk to all of your lenders. So that means you need to talk to your landlord for your commercial property. Talk to your vendors. If you have a restaurant and you're doing, a 30-day pay on items, maybe they'll let you do a 60-day pay on items. The other thing is, I actually had this one today. Somebody told me that their bank gave them a forbearance on their small business loan because the two departments don't talk to each other, by the way. So the fact that she told them that she was applying to for the COVID relief under EIDL, they were able to check that, and they actually gave her an interest-free forbearance during the time that it takes for the processing, because they were able to look and see that her loan was actually in the processing stages. So they gave her 30 days of interest-free forbearance, trying to folks, Believe me, I want everybody to know this. They don't want you to default on the money. This
Right.
is not that they don't want you to default on the money. It's no different. I try to tell folks they don't want your house. They do not want to foreclose on your house. They don't want that hassle, which is why I'm sure David Foster, when he comes on from his realty group, he will tell you all the time from Integrity Realty, you need to contact your lender. They don't want your house.
Absolutely. They don't want your house, but also make sure that you follow up and you get in writing whatever you've discussed with them.
Yeah,
Get
get
it
it in writing.
Get it in writing. One thing that that we in Florida saw happen after the last hurricane, and could happen here again too, is that they gave a 3 month forbearance, right? But then at the end of the 3 months, you were supposed to pay the whole amount, 3 months worth in one lump sum, or else they were considering you in default. So make sure you understand the terms of any forbearance you get. It's sounding like the CARES Act is making it, the Families First Act is making it a little bit more likely that federally backed loans are not going to do exactly that, but understand the terms of what you're doing there. I mean, if you can pay your mortgage, pay your mortgage. But if you can't pay your mortgage, just do what you can to negotiate and understand the terms that you're negotiating, so that you're not going to get caught flat-footed 3 months from now instead of right now. So, I mean, the good news is right now, most places are not doing actual evictions or foreclosures. I know here in Tampa, where I am, they're not. We have suspended the rule of issuing a certificate to go in and do an eviction, for example. But at the same time, that doesn't stop them from necessarily being ready to do so when the crisis is over. So better to get off the phone.
Stay on evictions is just while the courts have to stay on the evictions. The day that the stay is lifted, believe me, I know this as an attorney. So many of my attorney friends have been contacted already, and they have all the paperwork getting ready for that eviction on the day that they can file the evictions. Because
that's why
there are most landlords in Philadelphia, don't forget this, most landlords in Philadelphia own 1 or 2 properties. They're typically the family home that they needed to pay for the new house they got. They're, most folks don't have a 70-unit apartment building downtown. So they need their monies too. So I just, we're all in this together. I remind everybody, we're all in this together.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean,
another guidance you specifically want to point out to us about the EIDL. So we talked about the advance, and then we talked about the loan amount. How do we determine how much of the loan amount we apply for?
Excuse me. Yeah. So the EIDL is, there's the traditional EIDL, which is really just about it's not tied specifically the same way to exactly what caused the disaster. So there are and requires some underwriting. So you kind of show, you give more information about your business, your profit and loss, and those kinds of things, kind of show what you need to get through this, but it's not as locked down as the payroll calculation is for the PPP. And that's a longer term loan. So that loan can be up to a 30-year loan with about a 3.25% interest rate, which is a pretty favorable rate. And so the idea of the EIDL, especially sort of its original form, is, it gives you the ability to recover from the disaster now and pay for it over a long period of time, so you're not hit right away with, paying back large amounts of money. So it's supposed to spread it out. Both of these loans, by the way, have no prepayment penalties. Whether your PPP converts to a 2-year note and then you have to pay it after 2 years, there's no prepayment penalty. And the EIDL can go up to 30 years, depending, and no prepayment penalty. So it can be very helpful to get, but for the EIDL, you do, beyond the sort of initial up to $10,000, you do have to pass underwriting and show creditworthiness, which is the other reason it could take a little longer to get approved for that kind of loan.
Now, do you want to talk at all about the bridge loan and the Employee Retention Act, and just, kind of gloss over them, because believe me, the CARES Act is a lot, which is why we're really going to tell you that you need to go over to www.ip-appeals.com/COVID, because there's a lot. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so, different states have different kinds of bridge loans. And, like in Florida here, for example, we actually have a disaster bridge loan that can be, I think it's up to $50,000. I did send out an alert for this, but it's all, these numbers are going on in my head at this point. But it's a short-term bridge loan, and the full amount is due in a year. So you may be able to use idle funds to pay back that bridge loan, but you will get hit with a large, there's no prepayment penalty for the first year, no interest for the first year. When that 1 year hence, it's a 12% interest rate, which is horrible. So, so that's kind of the difference that you might be facing there. And so just look at the programs that are available to you very carefully. Sometimes the fast money is exactly what you need, and you'll be able to pay it off afterwards. Sometimes it's going to be more of a problem down the road and could put you out of business a year from now. So make sure you understand, maybe it's enough to just get through now and then you can plan ahead. I don't know, but make sure you understand what it is that you're applying for.
And then finally, for those of us, because the payroll taxes always confuse me, and honestly, the accountant handles that. I'm just over here. But if you, I'm not even going to lie. But if you can explain a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so the payroll, there is going to be some payroll tax forgiveness, like sort of run into all of this from the statute, and there's going to be some tax credits that come from these two emergency statutes that came out. And you will see those come into play when you do your taxes for 2020 and 2021. Some of them will give you a credit, and some of it is a refundable credit, so you'd actually get the money back if you're owed it. Some of it might just be against what you've already paid. So that will be helpful, but that's not going to be instantaneous help. So it's just a small way that you don't have to pay as much in taxes on the back end, but it's not going to help you very much on the front end. Now, I will say there is also the individual payments to people that are supposed to be dropping for just, every human being who is a citizen of the United States is supposed to get money that's dropped into their bank account and or a check sometime in the near future. And the administration of that has also been quite a morass from what sounded good when they passed it. So we don't really know at this time when those monies are going to be coming in or exactly how. To the extent that you've done a tax return to the IRS has bank account information on file for you, they may be able to deposit directly into that. If you get Social Security, they have an account for you. Beyond that, they're supposed to be creating a portal. I would just say two things. One, do not ever give out your bank account information on the phone. The government will not call you about this. Make sure you're working on, the whole portal to put in your bank information online. Scares me just because I know that there's going to be a lot of people who are going to create fake portals and try and take people's bank account information. Just make sure that you look and you see that it's a .gov website and that you're dealing with the government and not some scam website. Okay.
The other thing that you can do, please, the other thing that you can do, if you get an email from someone and you're not really sure, use a different device. So if you're opening it from your computer, open it from your phone, or go to search, the IRS.gov or whoever it's allegedly coming from, and then you'll be able to confirm whether or not it's a real and valid email address versus just responding to these things. And please, the IRS is never going to call you on the phone, ever. Correct. Not never. As a matter of fact, they're not even going to initiate with you on an email. You're going to get a nice certified letter or a regular letter in the mail. That's what you're going to get. They love snail mail. So if you didn't get some snail mail, it is not true. Even when you actually have an individual that you're dealing with already at the IRS, they will send everything to you via fax over a secured encrypted line that they've previously confirmed and have on file, and you've signed an authorization for them to send stuff to, and or they're going to send it via mail.
Right. I see William asking a question. If you did your taxes with an H&R Block, will it still go into your bank account? If H&R Block had that money put directly into your bank account when they did your taxes, then probably so. If they gave you an advance and then they took the check and it was assigned to you, probably not. And so I would just say call your H&R Block person and ask them how they did that. And you may need to update information to give bank deposit information, but that's not available to do yet. So just stay tuned for that information.
Kamari, the finance rebel, wants you to know they will call sometimes only if they sent you an email. So it is just always
be wary. Yeah,
Huh?
be wary. Be wary
Yes.
of any phone call. Even if they do call you, they're not going to, arrest you if you don't, or throw you in jail if you don't do something. And do not give bank account information off the phone to someone who has called you. You can, go to the IRS website and call back, and the direct number that's on irs.gov. So make sure that you're not, being tricked into giving out your personal, your social, or your bank account information over the phone.
Wait a minute. Kamari wants me to wait. Wait, what on? What am I waiting on, Kamari? What information you got for me?
They will call sometimes after they send you mail, not after they send you
Okay,
email.
there you go. Thank you. So yes, after they confirm that this is how you want to be contacted. Just like they
Right.
won't send you a fax until they've actually sent you mail and you've
Yeah.
written back that this is the fax number they can reach you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Kamari. That's right. You got to be exact over here when you're dealing with the lawyers here, Kamari. But this is our resident accountant, a friend of ours, friend to the show. And it's been a great time having you here, Dineen. See, note that
Thank you so much,
I'm all
Danielle.
on deck in my office, and she's over there in her fabulous floral dress, because I can only imagine how warm it is down there in Tampa today.
It's pretty warm right now.
So thank you for joining us on what is probably your sunshiny day, and it's getting grayer and grayer. Every day I can manage to do this show exactly at the time that I probably should have been out walking, such that when I get finished, it's like raining every single day.
No.
I gotta do better. Hey, Dawn, how you doing, baby? There you go. Yes. So we've had a great talk today. We are going to bring Dineen back because, when you have resources that let you pick their brains, you should pick them. So while she's not busy helping too many clients individually, she's out here willing to help all of you. Make sure that you follow up with her on www.ip-appeals.com/COVID. Get on that mailing list so that you can get up-to-date information. Also, you can always feel free to reach out to me and my staff over at 267-291-4702, 267-291-4702. And we're here to help you and make sure that we connect you with resources and get you through the process, because remember, we will do better together. This is Danyl Patterson, candidate for 190th Legislative District, and I'll see you tomorrow as we discuss the new Register of Will requirements and how we can actually get some service now, because City Hall has been closed for close to 3 weeks. But our fabulous new Register of Wills, Tracy Gordon, is taking some initiatives, and we want you to know about them first. Thanks, Dineen.
Thank you, Danielle. I really appreciate your having me.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.